Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. Welcome. We're glad that you're all here for this important conversation. Just a week and a half ago, a group of congregants from East End Temple and Shari Tefillah were traveling in Israel. And one of the stops that we made on this sacred journey was at the Nova Festival site in the Western Negev. And we spent some time there. It was quite an emotional visit. And we were approaching, reluctantly, the time to head out to the next step on our journey. And we noticed that there was a group of people kind of over there, gathered. And we weren't sure what they were gathering for, but like good New Yorkers, we were like, okay, let's go over there and find out what's going on, and then we'll decide if we're staying. What we happened upon was Millet, who was sharing her story there at the site of the Nova Festival. And we heard her testimony. It was quite moving. And when it was time to move on, we sort of started to head towards the bus. And we were all very moved by your story. And Leslie Wagner, who's here somewhere, right here, told us that when we got on the bus, she said she had been standing next to someone who was helping Millet organize a trip to New York this week. And by the time we got back to Jerusalem, we knew that we wanted to, if Millet had time in her schedule, to be with us. And so we're grateful that you're here and grateful that you'll share your story. Again, together with East End Temple, Shari Tefillah is honored to host Millet here today. She's here in the United States for a few weeks, speaking in many places about her experience. And she's also representing an extraordinary and important new organization called Survived to Tell, which is working to arrange for people like Millet, who survived October 7th, to be able to speak in the United States and in other places as well. I know that you'll be inspired by her story, and I would ask that you consider making a donation to the organization Survived to Tell. When you go out today, there'll be a flyer that has information and a QR code, and I believe for people who are watching online, later on there'll be a slide with information as well, so that you consider supporting this really important organization. Millet has a bachelor's degree in criminology and sociology and anthropology. Before October 7th, she was on her way to start her master's degree to become a therapist. And previously, she worked in education and therapy while also being a disc jockey and producing events. She's spoken on MSNBC, the BBC, and many other news outlets since October 7th about her experience that day. Grateful that all of you could be here, and I know others will join us, and there are many watching online. Millet and I will spend some time in conversation, and then we'll open the floor to a few questions at the end of our time together. So on behalf of Shari Tefillah and East End Temple, please join me in welcoming Millet Ben Haim. Welcome. I know you've already had a whirlwind journey, and you said 2 more weeks still to go in other places around the country.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, about your family, and your life before October 7th?
Yeah. So first of all, thank you for having me, and thank you all for bearing witness. I can tell. I can tell about my old self. So I was on my way of becoming a therapist, and it was, I think, maybe the most major thing in my life. I was just like, I think I decided I want to become a therapist when I was 9. So I was.
Are there other, like, your parents therapists, or like, why did you decide to become a therapist?
No, but they definitely helped me with the need of a therapist. So
Okay.
I grew to love that. No, they're great. Just
Fantastic.
parents being parents. Isn't it nice that I still have sense of humor? It took me a while to get there. And I was very friendly. I cared a lot about my family. I have a lot of siblings. I have 6 of them.
Where are you in the order of the
I'm
six?
the second.
Okay.
But the older one is a boy, so honestly, I'm the first. Like, no, he's amazing. I admire him. He's now obviously in reserve duty, so nothing but respect to my beloved older brother. But most of my time was dedicated to either family or friends. I did a lot of like volunteering work growing up, and I was very, very excited. I remember I kept saying like, I can't wait to become a therapist. I really, really wanted to help people. And also for me, being a DJ or producing parties was like part of it, just trying to make people happy and to give them as many opportunities as possible to just be themselves and love one another. And I traveled a lot. I was very, like, having fun was, I think, my main goal, and making sure that other people can have fun, because I think you cannot do good unless you're in a good place. So, like, that was, I think, for me, the mission of life.
That's a good mission.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, for sure. Can you tell us a little bit about why you wanted to attend the festival, what you were looking forward to for that experience?
Yeah, so I don't know how familiar you are with the trance music kind of community or events, but it's just a community. It's like you see the same faces over and over in different kinds of events. And what I like the most about, well, first of all, I like the music. I have ever since I was like, I don't know, 5, which is not very common, but I would like play trance music in the living room and dancing. I was also a dancer. I think dance and music in general was a big part of my life. And I love to go to those events because they are, well, I also like, like mainstream and going clubs and whatever, but there is something very unique about those events because usually it's at nature and the atmosphere is really pure. It's like, it's a place that you can dance however you want. Like, it doesn't have the scene of like trying to, like, I don't know, look good, flirting with people. Like, it's not about that. It's really, really just about being connected to yourself and to nature and to your community. And it's usually very, very joyful and free-minded kind of events.
Amazing. And so what was the experience of the Nova Festival until 6:30 in the morning on October 7th?
It was amazing. I think we all, like, looking back, of course, we have a lot of different emotions when we're talking about this, but it was a really great party. And I remember thinking to myself around 7:30, I think, which was at that part, of course, we knew about the rockets. We already knew that we have terrorists around us, but still haven't, like, seen anyone being murdered. And I did think at that point, like, I think it's still worth it. Like, that was my thought. I was like, this party was so good, I think it's still worth it. Like, of course now, no. Yeah. Like, of course. But
it was a good party.
Very much, yeah.
And what were your first indications that something was terribly wrong, and how did you begin to process what you needed to do, what needed to happen next? It sounds like it was a slow, and from what I've read and seen and heard, it was like a slow dawning realization, which of course, because no one would have expected anything like that, but what were your indications that something was going wrong?
Yeah, I think it just kept getting worse and worse, and no one could predict how terrible it will get. And honestly, it took us a few days after to actually realize what went there, to grasp this scale of terror attack. But at 6:30, that was obviously the first moment because the music stopped. And then we noticed the massive barrage of rockets, and it kept getting worse and worse. So with every minute, we're just understanding that it's not, I want to say, a usual kind of launching rockets, which is a weird word to use, but like in Israel, it is kind of something that happens every now and then, like kind of often also. But as it kept getting worse and worse, we thought, okay, this is probably like we're going on war now, probably. And that way we knew we have to escape, because technically you're not supposed to go in a car. You're supposed to lay down on the ground, cover your head with your hands, and wait for 10 minutes to make sure that all the ricochet will, fly wherever. I don't know how to say that. Right. And then you can go and escape. And of course, we're at nature, so we don't have any shelters. But we did not have a break from those rockets in order to wait 10 minutes and escape. And eventually we knew this is too risky. And even though it's riskier to go in a car, we just have to evacuate ourselves. And I think only when, so I was driving and I tried to get us out. And of course, you can imagine how that would look like, because there's 3,500 people and there is only this one bumpy road to get us out of there. So it's very difficult just to get out. Although I must say that even though the circumstances were awful, people were so thoughtful. Like you can see we're still functioning as a community, and nobody cuts lines. Like it's really, I find it amazing. But when I got us to the road outside of the party zone, after a minute, I had to stop, because the terrorists, they waited and they shot all the cars. And I think that was the point we realized we have terrorists, and it's not just rockets, and the threat is much more severe. And I made a quick U-turn to the other direction, trying to escape them. And after 2 minutes, I had to stop again, because the terrorists, they knew that this is our only way out. So they waited on both ends, and they're like closing onto us. And I think at that point, we realized the scale is bigger, and more than that, it's, well, I don't know if you know this, but the IDF only use weapons on a single gunshot mode, and we kept hearing the weapons go on automatic mode. And that was how we knew that we only have terrorists surrounding us, and then also we're not receiving any help, because we kept waiting to hear this single gunshot to know that we have the IDF in the area, but we did not hear that. But I think we thought there's probably 10 terrorists, which seemed at the time like tons of terrorists. And we thought, okay, we're in Israel, a few minutes and it will be over. But as the shooting kept getting closer, we decided we're gonna ditch the car and just run towards the field. And as we were trying to escape, we just kept seeing more and more people screaming from different directions that they're being shot. And we kind of found ourselves in this sadistic, terrible game that they're playing with us, going back and forth in between them. And at that point, I think we thought maybe there's 50 of them. And a few minutes after that, we noticed this group of soldiers. So we thought, okay, great, we'll run towards them. But then we noticed they're carrying RPGs, which is something in between a gun and a missile. And again, something that the IDF will never, you don't see soldiers just going around and aiming those towards people, because this weapon is supposed to be aimed only to target buildings and stuff like that. So it's not human. We don't do that. So we realized we're actually running towards terrorists. Later we discovered that after killing soldiers, they will take their uniforms so that they will confuse us. That was a technique they used a lot during that day. And so they're 100, 150 yards away from us. with their RPGs, and we decided we're gonna run, well, obviously, to the other direction and kind of like towards bullets now, because they were like everywhere. And at that point, this is like, you start to just see people falling down. And I think that was the moment I realized, you know, like, it's, yeah, and it kept getting worse and worse, but that was the moment I realized we're really in this crazy, in the middle of this crazy terror attack.
Can't imagine how terrifying that must have been for you. Were you alone? Were you with a group of people that you were kind of fleeing with?
So I was with a group of 4 friends that we came together to the party, and we escaped together because we came in the same car, so we went out on the same car. And we had, at the beginning, I think we were like hundreds, because tons of people came out of their cars, and we kind of escaped together. You've probably seen images of us running in that field, you know, that image of like a lot of people running. So it's that point. And a lot of people just ran from the party. It's actually not really far, because again, we couldn't really get ahead with the cars. We just like drove 1 minute here, 2 minutes there. It's like we're very close to the to where the party happened. And I think, well, some people were kidnapped or murdered, and then we all just ran different places. And it's hard for me to remember exactly what happened because it's so traumatic, but I do know that at a certain point we were a group of 10 people under this tree, trying to like hide and understand what to do. And then this guy that I don't know looked at me, and he said that we're moving targets. And that was like the moment I think I finally understood that there's no way out. Like, we're trapped. Like, that is the situation. They're surrounding us. But also I knew at that point that we cannot stay all together because they're going to find us. You know, a group of 10 people, it's too much. It's too, like, you try to stay silent, you try to hide, but it's not. We're in the desert. Like I'm saying, we're under a tree. You've been there. You see, you know how.
It's
like you
barren
don't have
landscape. It's not really. There's not lots of places to hide.
Yeah, and the trees are not like it's nothing. They can see you. So I said, okay, we have to split. Like, we cannot stay all together. And just like that, we started just running different places. And so I came with a group of 4. That was 2 guys and 2 girls. And the guys, they kept going. They ended up running 4 hours until they got to a village nearby. And a good spoiler, they're okay. Of course, at a time, we did not know that. We just didn't see them anymore. And the 2 girls and me were kind of like crawling along this small valley that we found, until we found this bush that we decided we're gonna crawl under. And we had another girl that we don't know joined us. And that was, for us, that was like, I know now, I didn't know this at the time, it felt like we're running for like 10 minutes. But I know that now that we actually ran for 2 hours until we got there. Because, well, again, it's so hard to find a place to hide that there's no good option. But yeah, we were 4 girls under this kind of a bush trying to cover ourselves with leaves and herbs that we found. Yeah.
During that time, were you communicating with family? What was your communication sort of to the police or the IDF?
So I didn't want to concern my family. I did wrote to them, like while I was running, I just like texted that I love them. But I didn't like let them know anything besides that. Like I thought that like I'm probably gonna die, but like I thought it will be better for them to have that as like a final statement and not just like going through hours of, you know, being worried. But then as we're laying there. It's already 9 a.m. and you have to stay silent, of course, because the terrorists are surrounding you. And we thought, like, okay, we should call the police, but we don't want to make any sound. And eventually I decided I will call the police, but they didn't answer. I think they answered, the first time they answered was like 9:30, but they said that all the villages are being taken over by terrorists now in that area, and so they can't help us. And they're kind of like saying, you know, good luck, hang in there. Like, once it's over, we can come and get you. And we try to explain, like, we know that there's terrorists, like, we see them, we hear them, like, we're not going to make it if you're not going to come. And they said, like, we're sorry, like, you're on your own. And then I knew I have to, like, ask for help from my family. So I sent our location, and I told them, like, I'm with 3 other girls, we're hiding, we're like in a fire zone. Again, I didn't want to specify, like, I didn't want to make them too worried. And you think that you're, like, you don't know when will be your last minute. And of course, all you want to do is, like, reach out to everybody you know and, like, tell them that you love them. But I was the only one with battery left on my phone, and I knew I have to save that. So I thought, what can I say in a sentence that will be, like, enough? I don't know, like, will be good as my last words. And what I wrote my family was that I really love them and that I'm happy with the life I had. I thought maybe that will, like, I made my peace with dying, but think that they will have to go through that. That was the hardest part for me, and I try to think what will help them go through that. So I thought maybe if they will know, you know, at least I'm happy with what I had, it will be better.
Just thinking about I want to ask, like, where you found that. It feels like you were a little bit sort of in charge of your group. Like, you found you were, like, in the midst of this insanity. You were, like, making as wise decisions as you could, and I'm wondering where does that come from for you?
I think my superhero is that, like, my, like, superhero powers stems from the fact that I'm made out of love. And, like, for me, it's I take all of my strength out of my role as a sister. Like, I knew that I have to be the sister that my siblings deserve, and I have to get back to them. So I couldn't fail them. So that was for me what kept me going.
Yeah. How long were you hiding? I mean, probably in the moment you didn't know. Do you know how long you were hiding, and how eventually were you rescued?
So we were there for 6 hours. The shooting kept getting closer and closer to the point we heard them, like, walking and talking and laughing, which for me was the worst part because, well, obviously it meant that the IDF is nowhere near and they're super comfortable in that area. But more than that, it was very hard to witness, you know, to know that someone can be so cruel and at the same time laugh. And I knew that they will have no mercy if they will see us. Then they found this Israeli guy that was hiding near us. Like, we heard him screaming for help, and then just a lot of shooting. And then we can see a couple of them. And for me at that point, I just started to pray that a rocket will hit me because, well, I told you before how safe I feel in those events. And that also meant that I'm wearing an outfit that I will never wear to any other occasion. And I kept looking down at my body, and I just hated myself. Like, I hated, it felt like we're dressed up for them in a way. And I knew that if they will see us, they will rape us. And so I was praying just to get hit by a rocket, or like for the very least that they will spray us before they'll do whatever they're gonna do to us. And of course now, like, knowing all they did that day to so many other girls, and actually not just girls, it's devastating. And as hard as it is to say, I think we should all say it out loud and speak about it, that they're doing this right now to the hostages. But in our case, with the crazy miracle, they just didn't notice us. They kept going. And you know, at that point, I lost hope. But I keep telling you about my siblings, and but it's important. It's an important part of the story.
Of course.
And I have my youngest brother. He's 10 years younger than me. He's more of a son, actually, to me. And he texted me that he trusts me over 100%. Which is a really sweet thing to say. Of course, he was terrified at that point. They're trying to like help me from back home. But like for me, that was, you know, like all I needed to remind myself of who I am, and like that I have to be strong, and I gotta keep trying to find a way out. I can't lose hope. And so I decided I'm gonna post on the Instagram, actually, the situation. And that obviously went viral, and now I had this kind of like crazy network of like people trying to find a way to help us. And then this girl that I don't know reached me, and she sent me like a contact information of Rami Davidian. I don't know if you heard that name, but you should.
Rami Davidian.
Yeah.
Okay.
You want me to say it with an accent?
Please. Yeah.
Rami Davidian. English. But he was just a hero, like a civilian that decided voluntarily to go in and rescue people with his own private car, which is extremely brave and heroic. And so he was looking for us.
He saved like hundreds of people, right?
Yeah, over 700 people, which is insane. He kept going for 3 days, just going back and forth, which is insane because the terrorists were there for like throughout this entire period of time. And so now he is trying to find us, and as he tries to do that, well, eventually I realized that he probably doesn't have our location like accurate, because he couldn't find us for a very long time. And then I asked him to send us his location instead, and I'm trying to like, we didn't have good service, so I didn't have like the full map to really understand where we are. And obviously I didn't know you're around different places with terrorists around you, so you don't really remember where you are. And I just tried to like look at the sun and at the time, and to kind of like give him direction, like go east, go south. We're trying to like find each other. And as we do that, I noticed I have 3% of battery left, because we're like hours in this situation. So I told him I'm going to try and save that battery, and that we're just going to stay at the same place, and he is our last hope. And I'm asking him like not to give up on us. And he was incredible. He said he's going to honk the horn of his car until he finds us, so that way, even if we don't have phones, we'll know that's him, which is, there are no words. Like, he's willing to risk himself like that. This is insane to me. But yeah, we're just laying down there with no phones now, just like holding hands, staying, silent. And after half an hour, and 6 hours in total in this period of this escaping path that we're having, we heard a car. So I'm trying to turn on my phone again and to reach out and to understand if that's him. And like, we're trying to figure that out. And I realize I have to get out of the hiding place, which is obviously a very scary part, because the shooting keeps, but I knew I have to be brave, and I'm just like crawling outside and trying to find a car. And I saw a car, but that car was really like fast. It went by really fast, and I thought, okay, he will go slow, like he's gonna try and find us. But at the last second, I noticed that this car has a sticker that says something in Hebrew. So I raised my body for like 2 seconds and went back down, and they actually noticed me and went back, and in that car was Leon Bal, which is another hero that you should know his name as well, that just came voluntarily to rescue people. The second I got into his car, my phone died. So we brought the girls. We actually tried to also find the guy that was screaming before, but we couldn't, and I can only assume they like kidnapped the body or something. But as we got into the car, we had we saw a lot of different people from the party. We're like sitting on top of each other. So we had to move us to a different car because you gotta stay low. So he was in touch with Rami Davidian, that was like a minute away. So he transferred us to his car, and then he took us to his village nearby. And we were actually reunited at that point with our friends from before. They put us all in a shelter, and a lot of survivors just kept coming. It's like a lot of them are injured. I kind of feel like you see a lot of ghosts because it's, you know, we all experienced different, like we saw different things that day. So we're very shocked, and like, we stayed there for a few more hours until the IDF was able to escort us to Beersheba, a city nearby that was safer, and our families could come and pick us up from there. So that was 7 p.m. We were finally like completely rescued. And it's important for me to mention that Leon Bar kept going for 2 days. He went back and forth until he was murdered. So it's just very important for me to honor his memory and share his story, and I will appreciate if you will do the same. Yeah, but that's it.
Thank you for sharing this story. Why is it important to you? I mean, so many people have stories, and you've chosen to be public about sharing your story. I guess I want to ask both why, thank you, and why, and what is it like for you to tell this story?
It's a big question. I have many answers, but I will try to.
Okay. We have time.
Great. Well, first of all, I want to say, like, most importantly, before I dive into like sharing how I got to share the story and all of that, I try to spread light and truth and hopefully to give us more hope and to make us all feel more united. I know that we're facing very difficult times, and you know, when I share this story, it's always important for me to tell about my siblings, because I think it's so important that we will all acknowledge the power of, you know, love and words. And every time I give this talk, I finish with the same quote that is like my favorite and helps me to go through life. So I will share that with you, and then I will move on to like answering about like the more technical part of sharing this. But it's in Hebrew, so this is my translation. But it says that there will not be a victory of light over darkness until we recognize the simple truth that instead of fighting darkness, we should turn on the light. And I think, you know, we witnessed great darkness that day and every day ever since, but we also witnessing great light, and I think it's really important that we hold on to that and keep it going, because there is hope, and I'm very confident that love would win. So,
Thank you for sharing that.
thank you.
Are there systems being sort of set up in Israel to support people who've gone through? I mean, obviously, I said to the congregation the other day that I was actually in Israel in November, and then just now. And when I was there in November, I came back and talked about post-traumatic stress disorder. Not that I'm a therapist, but that now I understand that it's not post. There's no post, right? Israel is still in the middle of the trauma and everything else. But I'm wondering if there are systems and organizations that have been set up to sort of provide support for folks like you that have gone through unimaginably traumatic things.
Yeah, so it's definitely an ongoing trauma. Obviously, we still have the hostages, and like a lot of people, my siblings among them, in reserve duty, and it's obviously difficult, and it's like a combination of different circles of this trauma, and very hard to overcome when you still don't feel safe. But we have a lot of, like I said, like there is a lot of light, and we have a lot of volunteers creating healing spaces for us, trying to address this specific trauma for the survivors of the Nova. And obviously a lot of our organizations are there to help the people from the Gaza envelope. And we have the Nova tribe. I don't know if you heard about it. You can find it also on Instagram. They're also like raising donations for that cause. They're amazing. And at the beginning we went every day to those healing spaces. That was like life-saving thing for us. It was, well, they offer a lot of treatments and like therapy, and also just to have a space for us to be together, because it's, well, for me it's very hard to be with people in general, but to spend time with other friends that went through the same thing has been very helpful, and it helps us feel more normal. I think we all kind of like scared of losing our sanity, and obviously the first few days we felt like I can't describe how that looks like, but it's nice. I think the main thing that I learned there was that I am normal reacting the way I react to such a not normal thing. So, so I think it's crucial for us to recover, to know that we're normal, because we're not, obviously.
Yeah, for sure. So you have been touring. I know you've been on, I think, some college campuses and other places. I'm wondering what the reaction has been. I mean, I think a lot of us wonder about our kids are on college campuses and everything else. I'm wondering particularly what the reception has been like for you on college campuses, but in general, how are people receiving your story, and what is it like for you to tell this story in this way?
Okay, so I think I'll use that question to go back into like sharing my journey and like deciding to share this with people. On October 8th, I actually created a reel on Instagram that shares my story in English with like some images from that day that I have on my phone. And well, it was the very beginning, and so people were very, curious about what happened. We did not have a lot of people posting any information regarding to that event, and so it went really viral very quickly. And that led to a lot of different reporters and channels from all over the world reaching out and trying to make like multiple interviews. And it kind of like became my life mission, because I knew that not a lot of people are capable sharing their stories now, and definitely not in English. And so I started like doing 5 to 10 interviews a day, and I became kind of like a PR specialist at that point. I had like different channels coming to Israel and making pieces about us. And after a month of doing that, I knew I have to also just like go abroad and try to, the increasing antisemitism that we're witnessing and so many people denying it. It was very clear to me that I have to take action, and I think we all learned that day that we cannot wait until the government will do that. So I just decided I will go and spread this. And ever since, this is what I'm doing. Like, I've been in Europe and I've been in the United States. This is my second tour here, and I will keep going. And so I speak in front of a lot of different audience. Obviously, the Jewish community has the most, they're more motivated in having those kind of events, which is also, I find it very meaningful. But of course, I try to combine that with going on campuses and reach out to, like, not just like preaching to the choir. And it's more challenging to go on campuses, but I think it's important that we all know that, radicals, they make a lot of noise, and I feel like definitely on social media or media in general, like they get a lot of, attention, but like it's not as severe as it seems. It's not great, of course, but it gave me hope, and I hope it gives you as well. In the experience, I think this is why it's really important to go as a survivor and as like a young person who just like attended a party, because it's much harder for them to be, it's harder to deny a personal experience when I have like my images on the phone, when I have like my emotional attached to this. And I think, for me, the most important thing is to make sure that we're gaining more empathy. And I don't think that people are changing their opinion just by listening to me, but they can, for the very least, understand that the situation is more complicated. And that, just by scrolling on TikTok, you can't have the full picture of this. So I'm trying to prevent them from going hating us blindly as we see that people are doing. So I think it's good. I was able to cancel some of the BDS that was going on different campuses. So it was meaningful, and hopefully that also gives strength to the Jewish students, because it's really hard, and it takes a lot of courage to just hold on to a Jewish identity these days. And I feel like we're all in this together, and it's important for me. I feel all the support of the United States and the Jewish abroad, and it's important for me that you will know that I also want to support you in what you're going through. We're just like one big family, and yeah.
Yeah. It is very powerful that you're sharing this story, and I would say that, I think to some degree we took this relationship a bit for granted, maybe that took for granted the extent to which we were in this together, and it's obviously we would give it all back to not have October 7th have happened or anything, but the reality is that it did, and we are there for you, and as you are there for us. Last question from me for now, and then I want to give folks maybe a chance if you have a question you want to ask. Can you tell us a little bit about the organization Survived to Tell? What are the goals, and how can the financial support that our synagogues have provided, and also that individuals who decide to donate, how will that help further the work of the organization?
Thank you. Well, I think the goal is kind of like becoming the new Yad Vashem in a way. So first of all, to record a lot of testimonies and try to raise awareness and make sure that the world will not forget and will not deny what happened. We are very active on social media, trying to just spread those stories. And we're kind of building ourselves as we go. But ultimately, we're trying to do what I'm doing here now, to go different campuses, different communities, and just, again, share those stories and try to gain more empathy, to raise more awareness, and to make sure it doesn't happen again, that people are speaking up against it. And obviously would be great if our government was better in this field of, sharing what is going on and making sure that the image of Israel is not as terrible as it is. And obviously that is linked to the way that Jewish all over the world are being treated. So, any donations we're receiving is helping us to build those kind of tours and to make sure that we can keep on going and for now this is like kind of me here because I'm willing to do that, and I was just like, I purchased my own tickets, I'm just here, I'm doing this, but it's obviously rare and it's not something that is reasonable to ask from other survivors, and so we're trying to make sure that we can raise enough funding so that we can make a delegation with like several different survivors and go all over and do this in a more organized way. So we really do appreciate everyone that can contribute to that goal.
Sure. We have a time for a couple of questions, and here's what I would ask. This is a time for questions. If you have speeches, I'd be glad to listen to them later. If you have answers, I would be glad to listen to them later. The invitation is questions. Does anybody have a question they want to ask? So I'll start back here, and then I'll go to you, Noah.
Thank you for sharing your story. It's very moving. What has been, you mentioned that you've been on college campuses here for the last week or two, that you've been here, you're going to continue to be. What has been your experience on college campuses? What kind of reception have you received, and from who?
Thanks.
Thank you. So this is actually my second tour specifically in the United States. It was for 3 weeks before, like in November to December, and also in Europe. So I managed to go to a lot of different places. And, well, I think I received mostly support being, a survivor. And, well, I do have from, people that are not necessarily like Jewish or pro-Israelis. It's more like, I would say, difficult questions, or like questions that are implying, denial of what happened, or justifying what happened. So I think that is like the other side of this experience. And I'm actually, I feel very blessed and honored to have those kind of conversations, because I think they are the most like meaningful. This is why I'm doing this. And so whoever is willing to have a conversation with me, that is like a privilege, I think. And well, of course, I get people who are not really there to listen to me. They're more there to, harass. But, well, I try not to give them too much of my energy, because, like, well, haters gonna hate. Like, but I do have meaningful conversations, and I think it's really powerful when they do manage to listen and to, again, understand, not change their opinion, but for the very least understand that it's complicated and that they don't have all the facts.
Noah, yeah.
Hi, thank you so much for sharing your story. It's very courageous, and I commend you 100%. I remember you were saying that trance music has always been a part of your life, even when you were young. And I know that the motto post October 7th of the Nova community is that we will dance again. I'm curious if that rings true to you. I think, speaking for myself, I wasn't at October 7th, but I'm struggling to get back into like the whole festival and trance music thing, because I'm just associating it with October 7th, so I can't imagine what that's like for you. But it's also like, we don't want Hamas or the terrorists to win and succeeding and ruining something that you loved so much. So I'm curious what your perspective is on that.
Thank you. I think, well, like, I agree with you. I think that we cannot let them win, and obviously, like, we have to recover from this and to go back to be able to dance and be happy. At that point, it's very recent, and I think it's too hard for me. And also, I kind of try to, like, maybe not resume too fast so it wouldn't be as associated as it is right now. And of course, it's hard to listen to that kind of music now. But yeah, definitely that is the goal. And, you know, I'm doing this one day at a time. So in the future, I believe that I will resume dancing.
Yeah. Howard, and then we'll come over here.
Thank you again for being here. Have you met with anyone, any political leaders or anyone from the UN? And if you have, can you tell us about their reactions to your story?
Thanks, Howard.
So I met with several different, like, ambassadors around the world. They were, I don't know, respectful, not necessarily helpful, but respectful. And maybe the most meaningful thing that I got to do was I was able to go to the Reichstag, the government in Berlin. And I was there for like 2 days, going into many different meetings with very important people. It was a collaboration with the Israel ambassador in Berlin. They organized like they had like strategy of like making sure that they're stopping supporting UNRWA, and also like pressuring for the return of the hostages. And so they had me, they found me and like thought I would be a good speaker. So they brought me on the specific days. They were like discussing about their budgets. And so I was there for 2 days and actually able, like, not, it's obviously not just me. I was just like a person to like, I don't know, like play the emotional chord, but I was able to get them to change their budget. So that was really good.
There's a question over here, yeah.
Hi. Again, thank you for telling us your story. I'm very impressed by your educational background and your desire to become a therapist. I want to know if this has really pushed you more to become a therapist and help other survivors.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have a fun answer, but life is not really fun now. For me, I feel more than anything that I don't know who I am now, and I don't see myself going back. Like, obviously, I did not start my second degree on this October, and I don't know if I will ever become a therapist or not. It's too early to determine. And for now, like, of course, I wish I could help people to overcome this, but it's not something that I have the capacity in me to help other people now. I'm too traumatized myself.
Yeah.
Again, thank you. Aside from making donations, can you think of specific things that we American Jews can do to help further your cause, to help further the organization's cause?
Thank you. I will say, speak up, spread those stories, help us. I think it takes a lot of courage nowadays to be public with our stories, and it's really crucial because we're 0.2% of the population, and it's, every voice counts. So I think being brave enough to hold on to our Jewish identity and share those stories is really meaningful. I will also say that going to Israel is something that can be very helpful, most importantly because it's really good to see people showing up. And on a more technical level, our economy obviously is not in the best place, and so having more people going into Israel and helping us rebuild ourselves that way, that is also helpful. And specifically regarding me, I will say any connections that you have to places that will be willing to have me speaking there, it will be greatly appreciated. And you have all the details of Survive to Tell, but I will also say my full name is Millet Ben Haim. It's Ben Haim, just H, no, without the C at the beginning. You can find me on Instagram, and also if you will search that online, my full name, milletbenhaim.com, you will find my website. And that is also a great way to reach me. You'll find my email and WhatsApp and whatever. So if you have any ideas of collaborations, connections, whatever, I would love to hear from whoever. Thank you.
There might be a lot more questions we have time for. We'll just have one last one.
My name is David Sherman. I just wanted to thank you, first of all, on behalf of everybody in this congregation that you speak to, and I just wanted to highlight the fact that, first of all, at least for myself, I know why I came, and I have my own personal trauma background that I wanted to hear what your story that you shared, but for every single person here and in every place that you speak, everybody has their own personal reason why they came to hear you speak, and even if they don't say thank you, it's really very meaningful to everybody. And I can't speak on why everybody came individually, but they do have their reasons, and it does mean a lot that you're speaking to people, so thank you for that. I wanted to know, I had two questions. One is whether the people that you interacted with at the festival, if you feel that the experience was something that only you can really share with them, and that you go back to these people as with a special place in your heart, that they're the only ones that can really understand that, even among other people that you talk to. And the second thing I wanted to ask was, and I also wanted to let you know that it's really unfortunate, and just to make sure you know this, that a lot of the pro-Hamas supporters are using October 7th as leverage to advance their own causes with protests almost daily in New York City. I don't know if you're aware of that, being in Israel, but it's very upsetting. But I wanted to ask, based on your own analysis of, it must have been so disappointing when the police said that they couldn't really help you, and on your analysis, how do you come to the grips that there was no quick system-wide response from IDF?
Thanks.
Thank you. So first of all, as for the sharing the experience with other survivors, I think, well, for me, it's very hard to be around people in general and to speak. Well, it sounds funny being here on a stage with a mic saying that, but it's hard for me to speak to other people. So like when I'm doing this for like a greater cause, it gives me the power to do that, to honor the memories, to make sure that all the death we've experienced will not be in vain, and, you know, to fight antisemitism. But other than that, on my personal life, I'm kind of like isolating myself. So I'm not in touch with my friends from my previous life, and I don't speak a lot with, honestly, anyone. But the other survivors are the people that I'm more comfortable being around and talking to. I definitely, like, I know that they understand, we all understand each other much better, and it's much easier for us to communicate. Because this, you know, going through this, it can be very, you feel very lonely, I think. Like, of course, I want to be close with my family and friends, but it's just not happening. Like, my heart is not able in having emotions right now towards people. So yeah, definitely feel better with survivors. And as for the IDF and police response, I will say, well, on a very personal level, I don't see any point in resentment and anger. It's just not who I am, so I don't have that in me. But I also know that everybody that, like, we had a lot of people trying to help us, a lot of people that are not here with us now, and I don't have any complaints, you know, towards the people there, like the soldiers and the police officers. And on a greater scale, of course, like, we have, you know, like, we are angry, you know, when we're thinking about that. Yeah, again, on a greater scale, like the way the government was not prepared, the way the IDF failed to calculate the risks that we have in that area, and that also led to the way that it took so long and was so hard to overcome this attack. But again, I don't see any point in resentment. I know that going on from that day, the IDF has been incredible, and our soldiers are so brave, and I'm very confident that they will do whatever it takes to make sure that we're safe, as they are already doing every day since.
Just one last question I'm so glad that we have some of our teens here in the congregation today. And I'm wondering if, you know, I feel like our kids are on a different front line. The IDF is on the front line, and Israelis are on the front line. And I'm wondering if you have any words for the teens that are here in the rooms, particularly.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely a whole other front line that is also very difficult to just experience. Again, I think it's really important to speak up. You know, the Holocaust happened because of propaganda, like, it happened because of Nazis, but like propaganda and people being silent. And I think that we can't underestimate the importance of speaking up and doing that hard, sacred work of helping Jewish people and Israel to be less, I don't know, hated, can I say that?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And I know it takes a lot of courage, but I will say that I think the thing that helps me the most is to be educated on that subject, so that I can, well, first of all, believe and know for myself where I'm standing and to have that strength in me, because if you're not, if you're not believe in your own story, you will not be convincing, and also you will not have that motivation to fight that battle that is so hard. And then also when you're speaking in front of other people, when you have the answers, it's much easier to have those discussions. I can say that personally, and it's been very helpful, but like it just happened to be that in my previous life, I made a lot of connections with people abroad, as I'm a person that travels a lot, and I got to also work abroad. So I have a lot of friends that are not Jewish, and a lot of them used to tell me that I'm not, like I need to educate myself, and I have only like the Israel narrative. And so I decided to sign up for a class in the university that was held by an Arab, and was about like the sociology of the Palestinian people. So it happens to be that I'm very much educated, and I read a lot of different articles from their like narrative, and so it helps me to be very confident in my opinion, and also to respond to whatever questions or arguments that I'm present with. So I will encourage you to just educate yourself and make sure that you have all the answers for yourself and for others.
I wish we were meeting under different circumstances. We are immensely grateful to you for your sharing your story. The strength that you have found within yourself gives us strength, and I hope that as you continue on your journey, you feel the support of people in the United States and around the world. We are holding you in our prayers for strength, for recovery, for finding the person that you are now. And your story is so important that you shared. On behalf of East End Temple and Shari Tefillah, I want to thank you so much for being here today. Can we thank Millet Ben Haim?
Thank you.
Thank you all for being here. You might want to come up and say hello, and just be mindful. It's been a lot and a long journey, so thank you for being here. We really appreciate it, and thanks to East End Temple for their partnership, and have a good rest of your day. Thanks.
Thank you so much.